What would you do if you came home exhausted after a long day, desperate to see your children, only to be denied entry at your own front gate? Not by a stranger, but by the very people you employed to protect your family? For Marcus Wellington, this nightmare became a reality on a cold November evening. What happened in the next 20 minutes didn't just change his life, it exposed a truth so shocking that it would transform everything he thought he knew about trust, loyalty, and the invisible walls we build around ourselves. If you're watching this, stay until the very end, because this story isn't just about a wealthy man firing his security team. It's about a father's love, the danger of assumptions, and a lesson that will make you question how you judge people every single day. And if you believe in stories that restore your faith in humanity while teaching powerful lessons about compassion and humility, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We bring you real stories with real impact, and your support helps us continue sharing these life-changing messages. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. Part 1, the evening everything changed. Marcus Wellington had never been afraid of hard work. At 42 years old, he had built an empire from absolutely nothing. Born in a one-bedroom apartment in the roughest part of Detroit, Marcus grew up watching his mother work 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. His father had left when Marcus was 3, leaving behind nothing but broken promises and unpaid bills. From those humble beginnings, Marcus had clawed his way up. He started working at 14, lying about his age to get construction jobs after school. He studied by candlelight when the electricity was cut off. He earned a scholarship to community college, then transferred to a state university where he worked as a janitor at night while taking business classes during the day. By 25, he had started his first tech company in his studio apartment. By 30, he had sold that company for $8 million. By 35, he had founded Wellington Industries, which had now grown into a multinational corporation worth over $2 billion. But success had come at a price. 3 years ago, Marcus's wife, Jennifer, had died in a car accident, leaving him alone with their 2 children, 8-year-old Emma and 6-year-old Tyler. The grief had nearly destroyed him. For months, Marcus could barely function. He would wake up reaching for Jennifer, forgetting for those first cruel seconds of consciousness that she was gone forever. His children had saved him. Seeing Emma's tears, hearing Tyler ask every night when Mommy was coming home, Marcus knew he couldn't fall apart. His children needed him. So he did what he always did when life knocked him down, he got back up. He went to therapy. He learned to be both mother and father. He reorganized his entire life around those 2 precious souls who looked at him with eyes so much like Jennifer's that sometimes his heart would crack all over again. The mansion in Westchester County had been Jennifer's dream. She had sketched it out on a napkin during their first year of marriage when they were still living in that cramped apartment, surviving on ramen noodles and ambition. Someday, she had said, her eyes sparkling with hope, we'll have a house with a huge kitchen where I can cook Sunday dinners for our family. A backyard where our kids can play. A library where you can read. A home filled with love and laughter. Marcus had kept that napkin. After she died, he had built that house exactly as she had dreamed it, every detail matching her vision. It was his way of keeping her memory alive, of giving their children the home their mother had imagined for them. The 20-acre estate included the main mansion, a guest house, extensive gardens, a pool, a tennis court, and a security gate at the entrance with a full team of security personnel. The security team had been necessary, Marcus's lawyers insisted. He was a billionaire with a high public profile. There had been threats over the years, anonymous emails, strange calls, a few obsessed individuals who had to be handled with restraining orders. Marcus hated the fortress-like atmosphere it created, but his children's safety was non-negotiable. So he had hired Elite Security Solutions, the most expensive and supposedly most professional security firm in the state. The head of security was Raymond Cross, a former military officer with an impressive resume and an authoritative demeanor that made Marcus feel his children were well protected. Under Raymond were 6 other security personnel who worked in rotating shifts, manning the gate, monitoring the security cameras, and patrolling the grounds. Marcus had always treated them with respect. He knew their names, asked about their families, gave generous bonuses during holidays. But he was also busy, incredibly busy. Most of his interaction with the security team was limited to a wave as he drove through the gate or a brief conversation when Raymond presented the weekly security reports. That November evening, Marcus was returning from what had been the longest day of his life. He had flown to Chicago for what was supposed to be a simple board meeting but had turned into a 12-hour crisis negotiation when one of his company's major partners threatened to pull out of a crucial deal. Marcus had barely slept in 48 hours. He had missed reading bedtime stories to Emma and Tyler the previous night, something he almost never did. His phone battery had died during the flight home, and he hadn't had time to charge it. All Marcus could think about as his Uber approached the mansion gates was hugging his children, hearing about their day, and maybe, just maybe, sleeping for more than 4 hours. He had left his car at the office, too exhausted to drive himself. The Uber driver, a kind middle-aged man named Ahmed, had listened patiently as Marcus talked about how much he missed his kids. It was 9:47 p.m. when the car pulled up to the mansion security gate. The iron gates were closed, as they always were after 7 p.m. Normally, Marcus would have called ahead or the security team would have been notified by his assistant, but his phone was dead and his assistant had left early for a family emergency. Through the car window, Marcus could see the guardhouse was lit up. He could make out 3 figures inside. He rolled down his window as the car came to a stop, ready to identify himself. But something was wrong. Instead of the professional greeting he expected, one of the security guards, Marcus recognized him as Derek, a relatively new hire who had joined the team about 4 months ago, stepped out of the guardhouse with an expression of obvious disdain. He didn't approach the car with the usual protocol. Instead, he stood a few feet away, arms crossed, looking at the Uber with suspicion. Gates closed. No unauthorized visitors after hours, Derek announced, not even bothering to come closer to check who was in the vehicle. Marcus leaned forward, surprised. "Derek, it's me. Mr. Wellington." But Derek didn't move. He squinted at the car, then smirked. "Sure it is. Look, buddy, we get people trying this scam all the time. I'm Mr. Wellington, let me in." The real Mr. Wellington doesn't show up in a beat-up Uber. He drives a Mercedes or gets dropped off in a company car. Nice try though. Marcus felt a spike of irritation mixed with disbelief. "Derek, I'm not joking. My phone died, my car is at the office, and I took an Uber home. Now please open the gate." The Uber driver, Ahmed, looked uncomfortable. "Sir, is there a problem? This is the address you gave me." "No problem," Marcus assured him, then turned back to Derek. "I don't have time for this. Open the gate." By now, 2 other guards had emerged from the guardhouse. Marcus recognized them as well, Peter, who had been with the security team for about a year, and a newer guard whose name Marcus couldn't immediately recall. Neither of them showed any sign of recognition. Peter walked up, his hand resting on the radio at his belt in a gesture that struck Marcus as vaguely threatening. "Is there a problem here?" "These guys are trying the old 'I'm the owner' routine," Derek said with a laugh. "Should we call the police?" Marcus felt his exhaustion turning into something sharper. "Peter, you've seen me dozens of times. You were here just last week when I drove out on Tuesday morning. We talked about your daughter's soccer game." Peter looked at him blankly. "Sir, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never seen you before in my life." That's when Marcus realized what was happening. He looked down at himself, seeing what they saw. He hadn't shaved in 2 days. His usually neat hair was disheveled. He was wearing jeans and a plain hoodie, something he'd changed into on the plane, wanting to be comfortable. His expensive watch was in his carry-on bag because airport security had been hassle enough that morning. He looked tired, rough, nothing like the polished businessman who usually drove through these gates in a luxury vehicle. They were judging him entirely on his appearance. "Let me explain something to you," Marcus said, his voice taking on an edge of steel. "I am Marcus Wellington. I own this property. You all work for me. Now, I've had an incredibly long day, my children are inside waiting for me, and I'm asking you, for the last time, to open this gate." Derek laughed outright. "Okay, Mr. Wellington, here's what's going to happen. You and your Uber buddy are going to turn around and leave. If you don't, we're calling the cops. We've got strict orders about people trying to scam their way onto the property. Do you know how many con artists try to get to rich people by pretending to be them? We're trained to spot fakes." "Trained to spot fakes?" Marcus repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. "Is that what Raymond told you?" "Don't bring Mr. Cross into this," Peter said sharply. "He's taught us to be vigilant. To not let appearances fool us. To protect this family from people exactly like you, homeless-looking drifters who think they can talk their way into a mansion." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Homeless-looking drifter. That's what they saw. Not the man who signed their paychecks. Not the father desperate to get home to his children. Just a shabby stranger in an old Uber who didn't fit their narrow definition of what wealth should look like. Ahmed, the Uber driver, spoke up quietly. "Sir, maybe you have another way to prove who you are? An ID or something?" Marcus reached for his wallet, then stopped. Why should he have to prove his identity to enter his own home? Why should he play along with this humiliating charade? But his children were inside. That was all that mattered. He pulled out his driver's license and handed it through the window to Derek. The guard took it, glanced at it for barely a second, and handed it back. "Nice fake ID. You can buy these online for $50. I'm done here. You've got 30 seconds to leave or I'm calling the police." Marcus felt something inside him shift. This wasn't just about inconvenience anymore. This was about something deeper, something that had been building in him since Jennifer died, since he'd built this fortress around his family, since he'd become so disconnected from the people who worked for him that they didn't even recognize his face. "Call Raymond Cross," Marcus said firmly. "Get him on the phone right now." Derek rolled his eyes. "Mr. Cross doesn't take calls from random people at the gate. He's probably at home with his family, unlike you, who's out here trying to run scams." "I'm not asking. I'm telling you. Call him. Now." Peter stepped forward aggressively. "Look, buddy, I don't know who you think you are, but you need to adjust your attitude. We don't take orders from homeless people in Ubers. Last warning, leave now or we're calling the cops." Marcus made a decision. He turned to Ahmed. "I'm sorry for wasting your time. Can you take me to the Westchester Plaza Hotel? I'll make it worth your while." Ahmed nodded, clearly relieved to be leaving this tense situation. But as he started to turn the car around, Marcus pulled out his laptop from his bag, thankfully still charged, and opened it. Within seconds, he had connected to his phone's hotspot using a backup battery he found in his bag. The first call he made was to his home number. It rang 3 times before his housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, answered. "Wellington residence. Mrs. Chen, it's Marcus. Is everything okay with the children? Mr. Wellington. Oh, thank goodness. The children are fine, they're getting ready for bed, but we've been worried. Your assistant said you'd be home by 7, and when you didn't arrive and we couldn't reach your phone. I'm fine. My phone died. But I'm outside the front gate and the security team won't let me in." There was a moment of shocked silence. "What? That's impossible. I'll call Raymond right away." "No. Don't call anyone yet. Just make sure Emma and Tyler are okay. Tell them Daddy will be there soon. I need to handle something first." "But Mr. Wellington." Trust me, Mrs. Chen. Just take care of my babies. I'll be there within the hour. He hung up and made his second call. This one was to his personal attorney, David Marsh, who picked up on the first ring despite the late hour. Marcus? Everything all right? David, I need you to do something for me. I need you to pull the complete employment records for Elite Security Solutions and every individual working at my estate. I want background checks, hiring decisions, everything. And I need you to draft termination papers for the entire security team effective immediately. What? Marcus, what happened? I'll explain later. Just get it done. I want those papers ready in 30 minutes. 30 minutes? Marcus, it's almost 10 at night. David, you've been my attorney for 15 years. Have I ever asked you to do something like this without good reason? There was a pause. No. No, you haven't. I'll get it done. The third call was to Raymond Cross. It went to voicemail, which didn't surprise Marcus. He left a message, his voice calm but carrying an unmistakable authority. Raymond, this is Marcus Wellington. I'm currently sitting outside my own gate because your team refused to allow me entry to my own property. They called me a homeless drifter running a scam and threatened to call the police on me. I'm giving you exactly 15 minutes to call me back on this number. If I don't hear from you in 15 minutes, consider this your termination notice. Your entire team will be dismissed effective immediately. You have 15 minutes. He hung up and checked his watch. 9:58 p.m. Ahmed had pulled the car over in a safe spot just down the road from the gate. Sir, I don't mean to pry, but are you really the owner of that mansion? Marcus looked at the kind driver who had listened to him talk about his children, who had driven carefully and treated him with respect despite his shabby appearance. Yes, Ahmed. I really am. Those security guards, they judged you by how you looked. Yes, they did. Happens to me all the time, Ahmed said quietly. I have a PhD in civil engineering from Cairo University. Back in Egypt, I designed bridges. Here, I drive Uber because my credentials don't transfer and I'm saving up to get recertified. But people look at me and just see an immigrant cab driver. They don't see the education, the experience, the person. They just see the surface. Marcus looked at Ahmed with new understanding. I'm sorry you've experienced that. It's life, Ahmed shrugged. But you know what's interesting? You're a billionaire, and tonight, you got a taste of what it's like for the rest of us. To be judged just on appearance. To have people assume they know who you are based on what you're wearing or how you look. How does it feel? The question hung in the air. How did it feel? Humiliating. Infuriating. Dehumanizing. Marcus had experienced poverty, but that was decades ago. For years now, he had moved through the world insulated by wealth, by the automatic respect that came with expensive suits and luxury cars. Tonight, stripped of those markers, he had been invisible. Worse than invisible, he had been assumed to be a threat, a con artist, someone not worthy of basic courtesy. It feels terrible, Marcus admitted. It feels like no matter what you say, no matter what truth you speak, people have already decided who you are and nothing you say will change their minds. Ahmed nodded. Welcome to how most of the world lives, Mr. Wellington. Before Marcus could respond, his phone rang. Raymond Cross. Marcus checked his watch. 10:09 p.m. 11 minutes. Raymond had taken his message seriously. Mr. Wellington, I am so incredibly sorry. Where are you right now, Raymond? I'm at home, sir. I've been trying to call the gate but no one's picking up. I don't understand what happened. Let me drive over right now and sort this out. Don't bother. I'm not interested in sorting it out. I'm interested in answers. How is it possible that guards you hired and supposedly trained don't recognize the owner of the property they're protecting? Sir, I don't have an excuse. This is unacceptable. Let me speak to whoever was on duty. Derek, Peter, and one other guard whose name I don't know. But here's what troubles me, Raymond. This isn't just about them not recognizing me. It's about how they treated someone they thought was a random person in an Uber. They were dismissive, disrespectful, and threatening. They called me a homeless drifter. They laughed at me. They wouldn't even make a simple phone call to verify my identity. What does that tell me about how they treat anyone who doesn't fit their narrow definition of belonging? Raymond was silent for a moment. Mr. Wellington, I take full responsibility. I clearly failed in training them properly. Please, give me a chance to correct this. Did you train them to judge people by their appearance? To assume that someone in casual clothes couldn't possibly be legitimate? To mock people who look different than expected? No, sir, of course not. But I may have emphasized too much about being vigilant against scam artists and threats. Perhaps they took it too far. Perhaps? Marcus's voice was sharp. Raymond, I hired your company because you promised elite, professional service. What I experienced tonight was the opposite of professional. It was prejudiced, arrogant, and cruel. But more than that, it's made me realize something I should have seen long ago. Sir, I've become disconnected from my own home. I've hired people to create walls and gates and checkpoints, and in doing so, I've created a fortress that even I can't enter unless I look the part. I've allowed assumptions and judgments to replace human decency and common sense. That ends tonight. Mr. Wellington, please. I've worked in security for 25 years. I've never had a complaint like this. Give me one chance to fix this, to retrain the team, to make this right. I'll fire Derek and Peter if you want. But please don't let one bad night destroy everything. Marcus thought about that. One bad night. But was it really just one bad night? Or was it a symptom of something much larger, a culture that valued appearance over substance, assumptions over verification, barriers over bridges? I'll tell you what, Raymond. I'm going to come to the gate now. You're going to call ahead and tell your team to open it immediately. And then, everyone on duty tonight is going to meet with me. I want to hear directly from them what they were thinking. And based on that conversation, I'll make my final decision. Fair enough? More than fair, sir. Thank you. I'll call them right now. Marcus hung up and turned to Ahmed. How would you like to earn $1,000 tip? Ahmed's eyes widened. For driving you to a hotel? No. For driving me back to that gate and waiting to see what happens next. I might need a witness. Mr. Wellington, you don't need to pay me $1,000 for that. I know I don't. But you gave me something valuable tonight, perspective. And you treated me with respect when others didn't. That's worth far more than $1,000 to me. Ahmed smiled and started the car. Then let's go see what happens when the billionaire comes back to his own gate. Part 2, The Confrontation. As Ahmed's Uber pulled up to the gate for the second time that night, the scene had changed dramatically. The iron gates were wide open. Raymond Cross's Mercedes was parked at an angle near the guardhouse, and Raymond himself was standing outside, his phone pressed to his ear, his face illuminated by the security lights. The three guards from earlier, Derek, Peter, and the third guard Marcus now saw was named Kyle, were standing in a line like soldiers awaiting inspection. The cocky confidence they displayed 20 minutes earlier had evaporated. Derek's face was pale. Peter kept shifting his weight from foot to foot. Kyle stared at the ground. As the Uber approached, Raymond ended his call and rushed toward the car. He arrived just as Marcus opened his door and stepped out. Mr. Wellington, I cannot apologize enough. Marcus held up a hand, stopping him. Raymond, I appreciate you coming so quickly. But right now, I want to hear from them. He gestured toward the 3 guards. He walked toward them, very aware that he still looked exactly as he had when they'd turned him away, unshaven, disheveled, wearing jeans and a hoodie. The only difference was that now they knew who he was. Derek spoke first, his words tumbling out in a rush. "Mr. Wellington, I'm so sorry. I didn't recognize you. You don't usually. I mean, we're used to seeing you in. I just didn't think." "That's the problem, isn't it?" Marcus interrupted quietly. "You didn't think. You saw what I was wearing and you made an assumption. But let me ask you something, Derek. Even if I wasn't Marcus Wellington, even if I was just a random person in an Uber, did I deserve to be laughed at? Did I deserve to be called a homeless drifter? Did I deserve to be threatened with police because I didn't fit your idea of what a mansion owner should look like?" Derek's mouth opened but no words came out. Marcus turned to Peter. "You told me you'd never seen me before. But 2 weeks ago, we had a 5-minute conversation about your daughter Sarah's soccer game. She scored the winning goal. You showed me a video on your phone. You were so proud. Do you remember that conversation, Peter?" Peter's face flushed red. "Yes, sir. I remember. So you lied to me tonight." "Why? I honestly didn't recognize you, sir. You looked so different, and it was dark, and I was in an Uber instead of a Mercedes, so I couldn't possibly be who I claimed to be." Peter hung his head. "Yes, sir." Marcus looked at Kyle, the youngest of the 3. "You didn't say much tonight, but you didn't stop it either. Why not?" Kyle, who couldn't have been more than 23, finally looked up. His eyes were wet. "Mr. Wellington, I'm new to this job. Derek and Peter have been here longer than me. When they said you were running a scam, I believed them. I should have questioned it. I should have at least checked more carefully. But I didn't want to look stupid in front of the senior guards. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." There was something in Kyle's voice, genuine remorse mixed with shame, that struck Marcus differently than the defensive excuses from the other 2. "How long have you worked here, Kyle?" 3 months, sir." "And before this?" "I was in community college, but I had to drop out to help my mom with medical bills. She has MS. This job pays better than anything else I could find. I was so grateful when Mr. Cross hired me. And now I've ruined everything." Marcus studied the young man. He saw something of his younger self there, the desperation to keep a job that paid enough to help family, the fear of losing an opportunity, the willingness to go along with others even when something felt wrong. He turned to Raymond. "Tell me about your hiring and training process." Raymond straightened up. "Sir, I personally interview every candidate. I check backgrounds, verify experience, and put them through a 2-week training program on security protocols, emergency procedures, and customer service." "Customer service?" Marcus repeated. "Is that what I experienced tonight?" "No, sir. Absolutely not. So either your training is inadequate, or these men ignored their training. Which is it?" Raymond looked pained. "If I'm being honest, sir, I think I may have created a culture that contributed to this. In my emphasis on protecting your family from threats, I may have encouraged an us versus them mentality. An assumption that anyone who doesn't fit a certain profile is automatically suspicious. That's on me." Marcus appreciated the honesty, but it didn't change what had happened. He turned back to the 3 guards. "Here's what I want each of you to understand. I grew up poor. My mother cleaned houses to feed me. I wore second-hand clothes and walked 2 miles to school because we couldn't afford a car. I know what it's like to be judged by your appearance. I know what it's like to have people assume you're less than, worthless, a potential threat, just because of how you look or what you're wearing. He paused, letting his words sink in. I built my success on the principle that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. Everyone. Not just people who look wealthy or fit certain expectations. Everyone. And tonight, you three violated that principle in a way that wasn't just unprofessional, it was cruel. Derek tried to speak. Mr. Wellington, if you'll just give us another chance. I'm not finished. Marcus's voice was firm but not loud. You didn't just fail to recognize me. You refused to take basic steps to verify my identity. You wouldn't make a phone call. You barely looked at my driver's license. You were so confident in your assumptions that you didn't even consider you might be wrong. That's not just a failure of security, that's a failure of basic human decency. He looked at Ahmed, still waiting patiently in his Uber. That man right there has a PhD in engineering. He's brilliant, accomplished, and dignified. But I'm willing to bet that you three wouldn't have treated him any better than you treated me tonight if he'd shown up in his Uber claiming to have business here. Am I right? The silence that followed was answer enough. Marcus continued, and that's the real problem. You've been trained, or you've trained yourselves, to equate appearance with worth. Expensive car equals legitimate. Casual clothes equals suspicious. But life doesn't work that way. People are complex. Situations are nuanced. And the moment you start judging based on surface-level assumptions, you stop seeing people as human beings. Raymond stepped forward. Mr. Wellington, what do you want me to do? I'll terminate all three of them tonight if that's what you want. Marcus thought about that. The easy thing would be to fire them all and start over. To make an example of them. To let his anger dictate his actions. But he thought about Emma and Tyler, asleep in their beds, waiting for their father to come home. He thought about Jennifer and what she would have done. She had always believed in second chances, in the capacity for people to learn and grow. I want you all to answer a question, Marcus said. And I want honest answers. If I fire you tonight, what happens? Derek, you first. Derek swallowed hard. I'd have to find another job. My wife is pregnant with our second child. We just bought a house. It would be really, really bad timing. Peter? My daughter starts college next year. I've been saving up. Without this income. I don't know. I'd figure it out, but it would be hard. Kyle? The young man's voice was barely above a whisper. My mom's treatment costs $3,000 a month. Without this job. I don't know what I'd do. Marcus nodded slowly. So you all have people depending on you. Families who need you. Just like I have children who need me to come home safely every night. Just like everyone working at my company, everyone in this community, everyone in the world has people who matter to them. Do you see the connection? Yes, sir, they answered in unison. I don't think you do. Not yet. Marcus walked closer to them. When you dismissed me tonight, when you laughed at me and called me names and threatened to have me arrested, you weren't just disrespecting me. You were disrespecting Emma and Tyler's father. You were creating a barrier between a dad and his kids at the end of a very long, very hard day. How do you think that made me feel? Derek's voice cracked. Terrible. It made you feel terrible. And we did that. We made you feel that way when you were just trying to get home to your children. Yes. You did. Marcus took a deep breath. Here's what's going to happen. Raymond, you're going to completely overhaul your training program. Not just security protocols, but empathy training. Unconscious bias training. You're going to bring in experts who can teach your team how to balance vigilance with humanity. You're going to create a culture where verification is standard but respect is non-negotiable. Can you do that? Absolutely, sir. I'll start tomorrow. Good. And you three are going to be part of that new training. You're going to learn from this. You're going to understand why what you did was wrong on every level. But more than that, you're each going to do 100 hours of community service over the next 6 months. They looked up, surprised. Derek, you're going to volunteer at a homeless shelter. I want you to serve meals, talk to people, hear their stories. I want you to see that the homeless-looking drifters you dismissed are human beings with complex lives and circumstances that led them to where they are. Derek nodded vigorously. Yes, sir. I will. Peter, you're going to volunteer with an immigrant support organization. You're going to help people who are new to this country, people who get judged by their accents or their appearance, people who are treated as less than when they're fighting to build a life here. Yes, Mr. Wellington. Thank you. Kyle, you're going to volunteer at a disability advocacy organization. Help people like your mother, people who face assumptions and barriers every day. Learn how to be an ally, not a gatekeeper. Kyle's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Thank you so much. I promise I'll never. I'm not finished. After you complete those 100 hours, you're each going to write me a detailed report about what you learned. And I mean detailed. I want to know how the experience changed you, what you understand now that you didn't understand before. If those reports convince me that you've genuinely learned and grown from this, you'll keep your jobs. If they don't, you're done. Is that clear? Yes, sir, all three said together. And one more thing. The next time you encounter someone who doesn't fit your expectations, I want you to remember this night. Remember how wrong you were. Remember that appearances can be deceiving. Remember that everyone deserves respect and basic human courtesy. Remember that your job is to protect people, not to judge them. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Marcus turned to Raymond. And you're going to personally supervise this. I want monthly reports on their progress and on the new training program. This isn't just about these 3 guards. It's about every person who works security at this estate. I want a complete cultural transformation. Understood? Understood, Mr. Wellington. And thank you for giving us the chance to make this right. Marcus nodded, then walked back toward Ahmed Zuber. He pulled out his wallet and handed Ahmed 5 crisp $100 bills. Mr. Wellington, you said 1,000, Ahmed protested. That was before. This is now. You taught me something important tonight, Ahmed. You reminded me what it's like to be judged unfairly. You showed me dignity and respect when you had no idea who I was. That's worth far more than $1,000. Take it. And if you're serious about getting recertified as an engineer, call my office tomorrow. I have connections at several certification boards. Let me see if I can help speed up the process. Ahmed's eyes widened. Sir, I don't know what to say. Say you'll call. The world needs good engineers, and it sounds like you're one of them. They shook hands, and Marcus finally walked through his own gate, onto his own property, toward his own home. The massive mansion glowed with warm light in the darkness. Somewhere inside, his children were sleeping. As he approached the front door, Mrs. Chen opened it before he could reach for the handle. Her face was a mixture of relief and concern. Mr. Wellington, are you all right? What happened? It's a long story, Mrs. Chen. Are Emma and Tyler asleep? Yes, but Emma asked me to wake her when you got home. Should I? No, let her sleep. I'll see them in the morning. Marcus climbed the stairs to the second floor and walked quietly down the hall to Emma's room. He opened the door softly. In the dim glow of her nightlight, he could see his 8-year-old daughter sleeping peacefully, her dark hair spread across the pillow, one arm hugging her favorite stuffed rabbit. He walked over and kissed her forehead gently. I'm home, sweetheart, he whispered. Daddy's home. Then he went to Tyler's room. His 6-year-old son was sprawled across the bed in that fearless way children sleep, completely trusting that they're safe and loved. Marcus adjusted the blanket that had been kicked off and kissed Tyler's cheek. "Love you, buddy. Daddy's always going to come home to you. Always." Standing there in his son's room, Marcus felt the weight of the evening finally settling on him. Not just the anger and humiliation, but something deeper. A recognition that he had become so insulated by wealth and status that he'd lost touch with what so many people experienced every day, the casual cruelty of being judged by appearance, the exhaustion of constantly having to prove your worth, the pain of being invisible to people who should see you. But he'd also experienced something else tonight, the kindness of Ahmed, who had treated him with respect despite his shabby appearance. The genuine remorse of Kyle, who was young enough to still learn and change. The opportunity to transform a negative experience into something constructive, something that might actually make his home and his community better. He thought about what Ahmed had said, "You're a billionaire, and tonight, you got a taste of what it's like for the rest of us." It was true. And Marcus realized that he had a choice. He could build higher walls and hire more security and create even more distance between himself and the messy, complicated reality of human interaction. Or he could use this experience to tear down some of those walls, to create a different kind of culture, one built on genuine respect and recognition of shared humanity. The next morning, Marcus woke to the sound of small feet running down the hallway. His door burst open and Emma rushed in, followed by Tyler. "Daddy! You're home." Emma launched herself onto the bed, and Tyler followed, both of them piling on top of him with the exuberant affection that made all the struggles worthwhile. "I'm home, Munchkins. I'm home." "Mrs. Chen said something weird happened last night," Emma said, her face serious. "She said the security guards didn't let you in. Leave it to 8-year-olds to cut right to the heart of things." Marcus sat up, wrapping an arm around each of his children. "Yeah, something like that happened." "Want to hear the story?" "Yes," they both shouted. So Marcus told them an age-appropriate version of the previous night's events. He explained how he'd looked different than usual, how the guards didn't recognize him, how they made assumptions based on appearance. "That's so mean," Tyler declared. "You're our daddy. They should have let you in. They didn't know I was your daddy, buddy. They thought I was a stranger." Emma, always the thoughtful one, asked, "But why did they think that? Didn't you tell them who you were?" "I did. But they didn't believe me because I didn't look like they expected a mansion owner to look. I was wearing regular clothes and riding in a regular car instead of fancy ones." "That's dumb," Emma said. "Clothes don't make you who you are. What's inside makes you who you are." Marcus hugged his daughter tighter. "That's exactly right, sweetheart. That's exactly right. And that's what those guards are going to learn." "Are they in trouble?" Tyler asked. "They made a mistake, a big one. But I'm giving them a chance to learn from it and do better. That's what we do when people make mistakes, right? We give them chances to learn and grow." Emma nodded. "That's what Mommy used to say. She said everybody makes mistakes, but good people learn from them." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Your mommy was very wise. I think she would have handled last night the same way." "I miss Mommy," Tyler said quietly. "I know, buddy. I miss her too. Every single day. But you know what? She's still teaching us things. Still helping us be better people. That's how love works, it doesn't stop just because someone's not here anymore." They sat together for a while, father and children, connected by love and loss and the daily work of moving forward together. Later that morning, Marcus called an all-staff meeting at the mansion. Not just security, but everyone who worked at the estate, Mrs. Chen and the other housekeepers, the groundskeepers, the pool maintenance team, the IT staff who managed the home's smart systems. About 20 people in total. They gathered in the mansion's large living room, looking nervous. Word had spread about what happened at the gate, and everyone was uncertain about what this meeting meant. Marcus stood in front of them, still wearing casual clothes, deliberately choosing not to dress up. "Thank you all for coming. I want to talk to you about what happened last night, and more importantly, about what it means for how we operate going forward." He recounted the story, not sparing any details about his own appearance or the guards' reactions. Some people looked shocked. Others looked uncomfortable. Derek, Peter, and Kyle, standing at the back, looked like they wanted to disappear into the floor. "I'm telling you this story not to embarrass anyone or create drama," Marcus continued. "I'm telling you because it taught me something important. I've been so focused on building walls and creating security that I've lost sight of something crucial. This isn't supposed to be a fortress. It's supposed to be a home." He gestured around the beautiful room with its high ceilings and expensive furnishings. "Yes, I have resources that most people don't have. Yes, I need to protect my family. But I don't want to live in a place where people are judged by their appearance, where assumptions replace actual interaction, where the gates are so high that even I can't get in unless I look the part." Mrs. Chen, who had worked for the family since Emma was born, spoke up. "Mr. Wellington, what are you saying?" "I'm saying things are going to change. Raymond is overhauling security training to emphasize respect and verification over assumptions. Everyone on this estate is going to participate in workshops about unconscious bias and treating people with dignity. We're going to create a culture where people matter more than appearances." He paused, making eye contact with various staff members. "But more than that, I'm going to change how I interact with all of you. I've been too distant, too busy, too wrapped up in my own world to really know the people who help make this household run. That changes now. I want to know your names, your families, your dreams. I want this to be a place where everyone feels valued and respected, not just me and my children, but everyone who works here." One of the groundskeepers, an older man named Carlos who had been with the estate since it was built, raised his hand. "Sir, if I may say something?" "Of course, Carlos. I've worked for many wealthy families over my career. Most of them treat workers like furniture, necessary but invisible. You've never been like that. You've always been kind, always respectful. What happened last night was bad, yes, but it doesn't define who you are as an employer. And I think I speak for everyone here when I say we're grateful to work for someone who cares about these things." There were murmurs of agreement around the room. Marcus felt genuinely moved. "Thank you, Carlos. That means a lot. But I can always do better. We all can. And that's what I want this to be about, all of us committing to doing better, treating each other better, building something here that's about more than just security and efficiency. Building a community based on mutual respect and genuine human connection." Over the next several weeks, Marcus implemented the changes he'd outlined. Raymond brought in expert trainers who conducted workshops on unconscious bias, cultural sensitivity, and the balance between security and hospitality. The sessions were eye-opening for everyone, including Marcus himself. One trainer, Dr. Amelia Johnson, a psychologist specializing in prejudice and stereotyping, made a point that stuck with Marcus: "We all have biases. They're part of how our brains process information quickly. But we can choose whether to act on those biases or to question them." The guards who turned Mr. Wellington away weren't necessarily bad people, they were people acting on unquestioned assumptions. The difference between prejudice and wisdom is the willingness to question your first impression. Derek, Peter, and Kyle attended every workshop and completed their community service hours. Marcus received updates on their progress, and the reports were encouraging. Derek wrote about a man at the homeless shelter who had been a successful accountant before a series of medical emergencies and job loss left him on the streets. He was wearing dirty clothes and hadn't shaved in weeks, Derek wrote, but when we talked, he was articulate, educated, and dignified. He could have been Mr. Wellington that night. He could have been anyone. I realized how close any of us are to circumstances beyond our control, and how wrong it is to judge people in their most vulnerable moments. Peter's report detailed his work with an immigrant support organization, where he met a Syrian family, a doctor, an engineer, and their 3 children, who were rebuilding their lives after fleeing war. They speak with accents and wear different clothes and sometimes struggle with English, Peter wrote, but they're some of the bravest, most resilient people I've ever met. They've lost everything but held on to their dignity and hope. Working with them has shown me how much I took for granted, and how wrong I was to make assumptions about people based on surface-level differences. Kyle's work with disability advocacy hit closest to home because of his mother's MS. I thought I understood what my mom goes through, he wrote, but working with other people with disabilities has shown me how much invisible struggle exists. People make assumptions about capability, about intelligence, about worthiness, based on physical appearance or mobility challenges. I've seen brilliant minds dismissed because of speech difficulties, talented artists overlooked because of mobility aids, loving parents doubted because of visible disabilities. It's made me realize that the wheelchair or the cane or the different appearance is just one tiny aspect of a full, complex human being. Just like Mr. Wellington's casual clothes were one tiny aspect of a successful businessman and loving father. Marcus read these reports with a mixture of satisfaction and humility. The guards were learning, yes, but he was learning too. He was learning that real change required sustained effort, not just a single dramatic gesture. He was learning that creating a culture of respect meant constant vigilance against the easy shortcuts of assumption and stereotype. He also made changes to his own behavior. He started having regular one-on-one meetings with staff members, learning about their lives, their families, their aspirations. He discovered that Maria, one of the housekeepers, was taking online courses in interior design and dreamed of starting her own business. He connected her with contacts in the industry and became her first client, asking her to redesign the mansion's guest house. He learned that Carlos, the groundskeeper, had a grandson who was brilliant with plants but couldn't afford college. Marcus set up a scholarship fund and Carlos's grandson became the first recipient, now studying horticulture at a state university. He learned that Raymond himself had a daughter with autism who struggled to find employment despite her considerable talents. Marcus created a position in his company's IT department specifically suited to her skills, and she thrived there, eventually becoming one of their most valuable programmers. As for Ahmed, the Uber driver, Marcus made good on his promise. He connected Ahmed with certification boards and offered to sponsor his recertification process. 6 months after that fateful night, Ahmed passed his engineering certification and Marcus hired him at Wellington Industries to work on a major infrastructure project. "You gave me a ride when I needed one," Marcus told him. "Let me return the favor." Emma and Tyler noticed the changes too. "Daddy, you seem happier," Emma observed one evening as they sat together reading before bed. "Do I, sweetheart?" "Yeah. You smile more. You talk about the people who work here like they're friends, not just workers." "That's because they are friends. Or becoming friends. I realized I was missing out on knowing some really amazing people." "Is that what you learned when the guards didn't let you in?" Marcus thought about that. "That's part of it. I learned that being rich doesn't make someone better than anyone else. I learned that how you treat people matters more than what you own. And I learned that your mommy was right about a lot of things." "Like what?" "Like that every person has value and deserves respect. Like that we're all connected, even when we don't realize it. Like that love and kindness matter more than money or status or any of the other things people think are important." Emma snuggled closer to him. "I wish Mommy could see how you're doing this stuff she believed in." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "I think she can, sweetheart. I think she can." 3 months after the gate incident, Marcus held a gathering at the mansion. Not a formal party, but a casual barbecue for everyone who worked at the estate and their families. The grounds were filled with children playing, adults talking and laughing, the smell of grilled food wafting through the air. Derek was there with his wife and their 2 children, including the new baby. Peter brought his daughter Sarah, who had gotten a scholarship to college, with a reference letter from Marcus after he'd gotten to know her through her father's stories. Kyle came with his mother, who was having a good health day and was delighted to see the beautiful estate her son helped protect. Raymond brought his daughter, who had Emma and Tyler absolutely fascinated with her detailed knowledge of every species of butterfly in the garden. Carlos presided over the grill like a maestro, his grandson helping him and talking excitedly about his college courses. Family were there too, and Ahmed spent an hour talking with Marcus's chief engineer about the infrastructure project they were working on together. Mrs. Chen orchestrated everything with her usual efficiency, but Marcus noticed she was smiling more than usual, clearly pleased to see the formal estate transformed into something warmer and more alive. At one point, Marcus found himself standing on the back terrace, looking out over the gathering. He felt a presence beside him and turned to see Raymond. "Beautiful sight, isn't it?" Raymond said. "It really is. This is what I should have created from the beginning. Not just a secure fortress, but a community. If I may speak freely, sir." "Always. What happened that night was terrible. Unacceptable. But the way you handled it. I've learned more from that than from my entire career in security. You could have destroyed us all. Instead, you gave us the chance to grow. To become better. I'm grateful for that. We all are." Marcus nodded. "I'm grateful too. That night stripped away a lot of my illusions. It reminded me where I came from and what really matters. In a strange way, being locked out of my own gate was the best thing that could have happened to me." Derek approached them, his baby daughter in his arms. "Mr. Wellington, I wanted to thank you again. Not just for keeping my job, but for the opportunity to really change. My wife says I'm a better husband now, more patient, less quick to judge. It's affected every part of my life." "That's good to hear, Derek. How's fatherhood treating you?" "It's incredible. Terrifying, but incredible." He paused, then added, "You know, holding my daughter, I think about what you said that night, about trying to get home to your kids. About being somebody's father. It hits different now. I can't imagine someone keeping me from my daughter when I just want to hold her. I'm so sorry I did that to you. You've apologized, you've learned, you've changed. That's all I ever wanted, Derek. Mistakes are only failures if we don't learn from them." As Derek walked away, Peter came up with his daughter Sarah. "Mr. Wellington, Sarah wanted to thank you for the reference letter. The scholarship committee mentioned it specifically." Sarah, a bright-eyed 18-year-old, spoke up enthusiastically. "Mr. Wellington, thank you so much. I'm going to study social work. After hearing what my dad went through, what he learned about not judging people, I want to help people who get judged unfairly. People who are homeless or struggling or different. I want to be someone who sees past the surface." Marcus felt a surge of emotion. "Sarah, that's wonderful. The world needs more people like that. Your father must be very proud." "He is. And he says it's because of what you taught him. About respect and second chances and seeing people as human beings." After they left, Kyle approached with his mother, a kind-faced woman in her 50s who walked with a cane. "Mr. Wellington, my mother wanted to meet you." Kyle's mother extended her hand. "Mr. Wellington, I'm Grace. I wanted to thank you for what you did for my son. When he told me what happened that night, I was so ashamed. I raised him better than that. But you gave him the chance to be better, and he's grabbed it with both hands. The volunteer work he's doing, the things he's learning, it's made such a difference. Grace, your son made a mistake, but his immediate remorse told me everything I needed to know about his character. You raised a good man. He just needed a chance to prove it." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "And you gave him that chance when many wouldn't have. That's the mark of a truly good person, Mr. Wellington. Knowing when to punish and when to teach." My son will never forget this lesson. None of us will. As the afternoon turned to evening, Marcus watched Emma and Tyler playing with the other children, running freely across the lawn without a care in the world. This was what he wanted for them, not a fortress that isolated them from reality, but a home that prepared them for the real world while keeping them safe. A place where they learned to see people as individuals, to question assumptions, to lead with compassion. Later, as guests began to leave, Marcus stood at the gate, the same gate where he'd been turned away months earlier. But now it wasn't a barrier, it was simply an entrance to a home, one that opened to welcome people in rather than keeping them out. Ahmed was one of the last to leave. As he shook Marcus's hand, he said, "You know, Mr. Wellington, that night I picked you up, I never imagined it would lead to all this. A new career, new friendships, being part of something bigger. It's amazing how one moment can change everything." "It really is," Marcus agreed. "You changed my life that night too, Ahmed. You reminded me to see people, really see them. That's a gift I'll never forget. Maybe we both needed that night to happen. Maybe the universe puts us exactly where we need to be, when we need to be there." After everyone had left and the estate was quiet again, Marcus tucked Emma and Tyler into bed. As he kissed them goodnight, Emma said, "Daddy, today was fun. Can we do it again?" "Absolutely, sweetheart. This is how it's going to be from now on. Not every day will be a party, but every day we're going to remember that what makes our home special isn't the mansion or the gates or the security. It's the people. The connections. The love." "Like Mommy always said," Tyler murmured sleepily. "Like Mommy always said," Marcus agreed. He went to his own room and pulled out the napkin Jennifer had sketched on all those years ago, the dream house she'd imagined. Looking at it now, he realized she hadn't just sketched a building. She'd sketched a vision of home filled with love and laughter, with open doors and warm welcomes, with a kitchen for feeding family and friends, with spaces where people could grow and connect and belong. He'd built the house. But it had taken being locked out of it to understand what Jennifer had really been dreaming of, not a fortress, but a haven. Not walls to keep people out, but a foundation to bring people together. Marcus had started that November evening as a man locked out of his own mansion, humiliated and angry. He ended it as a man who had unlocked something far more valuable, a deeper understanding of humanity, including his own. The security team he almost fired had become teachers of an invaluable lesson. The Uber driver he met by chance had become a friend and colleague. The staff he had barely known had become a community. The gates to his mansion still stood, still served their security purpose. But they opened differently now, not as barriers to judge who was worthy of entry, but as portals to a home built on the principles Jennifer had always championed: respect, compassion, and the fundamental belief that every person, regardless of appearance or circumstance, deserves to be seen, heard, and valued. In the end, being locked out had helped Marcus unlock the life he was meant to be living all along. Epilogue, 1 year later. The annual estate barbecue had become a beloved tradition. This year's gathering was even larger, with staff, their families, and new friends Marcus had made through his community outreach efforts. Derek had become the head of a new initiative Marcus started, a training program for security professionals that emphasized the balance between safety and human dignity. His real-world experience of learning from a terrible mistake made him an incredibly effective teacher. Peter had gone back to school himself, inspired by his daughter, to study counseling. He wanted to work with people who had been judged unfairly by society. "If I can help others avoid the mistakes I made," he told Marcus, "then maybe something good came from that night." Kyle had been promoted to a senior position on the security team and his mother's medical expenses were covered by the comprehensive health insurance Marcus had upgraded for all estate employees. Grace's MS was managed better than ever, and she volunteered regularly at the same disability advocacy organization where Kyle had done his community service. Raymond's company had transformed its entire training program based on what they'd learned, and Elite Security Solutions had become known industry-wide for its progressive approach to security that never sacrificed human dignity for safety. Ahmed was thriving as an engineer at Wellington Industries, leading projects that brought clean water to underserved communities. From driving an Uber to designing infrastructure that helps thousands of people, he often marveled. All because one stubborn billionaire in a hoodie wouldn't take no for an answer. But perhaps the most significant change was in Marcus himself. He had stepped back from some of his corporate responsibilities to spend more time with Emma and Tyler, to be present in their lives in ways that success had once prevented. He had also become a vocal advocate for treating service workers and security personnel with respect, often speaking publicly about his experience. "I was a billionaire who got locked out of his own mansion," he would say in speeches. But really, I had locked myself out long before that night. I had locked myself out of genuine human connection, out of seeing the people around me, out of remembering what really matters. Those security guards did me a favor, though they didn't know it at the time. They held up a mirror and showed me who I had become. And they gave me the chance to become someone better. The story had gotten media attention, of course. But Marcus had controlled the narrative carefully, always emphasizing the lessons learned and the positive changes rather than shaming anyone involved. It became a story not of wealthy vengeance but of mutual growth and transformation. At this year's barbecue, Marcus stood once again on the terrace, but this time Emma and Tyler were beside him. "Daddy," Emma said, "remember when you told us about the night you couldn't get in the gate?" "I do, sweetheart. I'm glad it happened." Marcus looked at his daughter in surprise. "You are? Why?" "Because it made everything better. You're happier. We have more friends. And you taught everyone, including us, that being rich doesn't make you better than anyone else. Being kind does." Tyler nodded sagely. "And you showed us that when people make mistakes, you give them chances. Like you give us chances when we mess up." Marcus pulled his children close, overwhelmed with love and gratitude. "You two are the wisest people I know. And you're absolutely right. That night was a gift, even though it didn't feel like it at the time. Everything okay up here?" It was Mrs. Chen, carrying a tray of lemonade. "Everything's perfect, Mrs. Chen. Thank you." She smiled warmly. "You know, Mr. Wellington, in all my years working in homes like this, I've never seen anything like what you've built here. Not the mansion, the community. The family. It's special. We're all building it together," Marcus said. "That's what makes it special." As the sun set over the estate, casting golden light across the gathering of friends and family, Marcus reflected on how a single moment of humiliation had become the catalyst for profound change. He thought about the quote often attributed to his late wife's favorite author, "We are all just walking each other home." That night at the gate, everyone involved had been walking their own path, Marcus toward reconnection with his humanity, the guards toward understanding and growth, Ahmed toward new opportunities, and all of them toward a deeper appreciation of what it means to truly see another person. The mansion's gates still stood tall and strong. But now they represented something different. Not barriers of exclusion, but thresholds of possibility. Not walls to keep the world out, but doorways to invite connection in. And every time Marcus drove through those gates, whether in a Mercedes or an Uber, in a suit or a hoodie, he remembered the night he was turned away. He remembered it not with anger or resentment, but with gratitude. Because sometimes, being locked out is exactly what we need to find our way back home. Emma and Tyler ran off to join the other children, their laughter floating back to him on the evening breeze. Somewhere, Marcus liked to think, Jennifer was watching and smiling. He had finally built the home she had dreamed of, not just the structure she had sketched on that napkin, but the spirit of love, acceptance, and community she had always envisioned. The single dad who had been blocked at his own mansion gate had learned what countless people already knew, that dignity isn't determined by bank accounts or addresses, that respect isn't earned through appearance or status, and that the most valuable things in life, love, compassion, human connection, are available to everyone, regardless of what gates they pass through. As darkness fell and the string lights twinkled across the garden, Marcus made a silent promise to Jennifer, to his children, to himself: never again would anyone be judged at these gates by their appearance. Never again would assumptions replace human decency. This home would be a place where every person was seen, valued, and respected, not for what they owned or how they looked, but for the simple, profound fact that they were human. And that, Marcus realized, was the true measure of wealth. Not what you accumulated behind your gates, but what you shared beyond them. Not who you kept out, but who you welcomed in. Not the mansion you built, but the community you created. The story that began with locked gates ended with open hearts. And that made all the difference. The message asterisk. If this story touched your heart, I want to leave you with this thought: every day, we all stand at gates, literal or metaphorical, where we make choices about how we treat people. We decide whether to judge based on appearance or to look deeper. We decide whether to maintain walls or build bridges. We decide whether to exclude or embrace. Marcus Wellington had wealth and power, but on that November evening, stripped of the markers that usually commanded respect, he experienced what millions of people face every single day: the pain of being prejudged, dismissed, and devalued based on surface-level observations. But here's the beautiful truth: Marcus used that painful experience not for revenge, but for transformation. He gave second chances. He chose education over punishment. He built community over isolation. And in doing so, he created something far more valuable than any mansion: a home built on respect, compassion, and the recognition of our shared humanity. You don't need to be a billionaire to apply these lessons. Every one of us has the power to see people beyond their appearance, their job title, their circumstances. Every person has a story, a struggle, a dream. Take the time to really see them. Question your assumptions: that first impression? It's probably incomplete. The person who doesn't look like they belong might be exactly where they need to be. Don't let unconscious bias rob you of connections with incredible people. Give second chances. People make mistakes. What matters is whether they're willing to learn and grow. Be the person who offers grace and opportunity for transformation. Build community, not fortresses. Whatever your mansion is, your home, your workplace, your social circle, make it a place of inclusion and warmth rather than exclusion and judgment. Remember that dignity is non-negotiable. Every person deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of their status, appearance, or circumstances. Service workers, security guards, Uber drivers, homeless individuals, everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Choose kindness. Marcus Wellington's story reminds us that sometimes our lowest moments become our greatest teachers. Being locked out, whether from a mansion, an opportunity, or recognition, can be the experience that unlocks our capacity for empathy and growth. To everyone watching this video, thank you for sticking with this story to the end. If it made you think differently about how you judge people, if it inspired you to be more compassionate, if it reminded you that everyone deserves respect, then it achieved its purpose. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel. We share these stories because we believe in the power of narrative to change hearts and minds. Every like, every share, every comment helps us reach more people with messages of hope, transformation, and human connection. And the next time you find yourself making a snap judgment about someone based on their appearance, the person in casual clothes, the one with an accent, the individual who doesn't fit your expectations, remember Marcus at his own gate. Remember Ahmed with his PhD driving an Uber. Remember that some of the most remarkable people you'll ever meet might not look remarkable at first glance. We are all just walking each other home. Let's make sure we keep the gates open and the welcome warm for everyone on the journey. Thank you for watching. Until next time, choose compassion, practice empathy, and never forget that how you treat people in their most vulnerable moments reveals who you truly are.